I rattled off some players' names last episode at the end, but we were on a time crunch, so I didn't really get into what I was thinking about for each player. So now that we have some time, I thought I'd just go through the list of names I'm watching and the storylines and things I have in mind for each of those names. So right at the top is Novak Djokovic, currently sitting tied with Rafael Nadal for the most Grand Slams ever won on the ATP side of things. As I think the favorite to win this tournament, without Nadal playing in it, he has, and like with having won the Australian Open, your first impression is that he has a very good chance. You look at how he didn't win the two Masters clay events, you look at a couple of the smaller losses, and you wonder if this is maybe like influenced a little by what we're seeing with Nadal not being able to play. You wonder like if we're seeing a dip early. You wonder if there's any rust from not being able to play the Sunshine Double and just not having been on the court that much. But just when he's been so consistent and the rest of the field is so green in terms of Grand Slam victories, like it's hard to take that away. I think the narrative has pretty definitively shifted to already considering him like the greatest. If he wins this one in Nadal's backyard without Nadal present, it's going to be very reminiscent for Nadal fans of what Djokovic fans were feeling about 14, 15 months ago around the time of that Australian Open. But Nadal has alluded, like, he's not retired. We're going to see more tennis out of Nadal. So there are still a few more chapters to be written at the end of that book. But just anytime there's a Grand Slam right now, that is the first and foremost story. That race to see who can rack it up. In his half of the draw, though, is one Carlos Alcaraz. So they would meet in the semifinals if they were to go. And Alcaraz, like the only player left in the draw, I believe, who's like under 35 outside of Djokovic. It's just Wawrinka. I can't remember if Wawrinka's still in. I think he probably is. But like brackets on Wawrinka, Alcaraz is the only player in this draw who's won a Grand Slam other than Djokovic. It's a notable asterisk that that was the most wild card of the Grand Slams, and it's one that Djokovic wasn't present at. So for Alcaraz to take the next step in hype, when you've accomplished so much already as a teenager, the world is going to expect unreasonable things of you. And so like, it sounds bizarre to say like, this is what he needs to do, like for his legacy, for the type of player that people are building him out to be already. But it really is, that's where he's at. Like, this is the next step to start being a proven factor at Grand Slams. And he's got a tough draw. So he won today in the second round. He is going to face Denis Shapovalov in the third round. You never really know what you're going to get there. But the fourth round winner of that match will face the winner between Cam Norrie and Lorenzo Musetti. Cam Norrie has beat Alcaraz on clay before, and Musetti is a pretty dangerous second option there. Will be for Norrie as well. And then after that, I believe Alcaraz would be slated to face Stefanos Tsitsipas if the Greek is able to win his way to there. The French Open, one of the two Grand Slam finals that Tsitsipas has reached so far. And like, just to touch on him briefly, it's been a bit of a rough start. He picked it up, I think, at his first semifinal to a Masters 1000 event in Rome this year. You make a deep run here and like all of that's forgotten. You make it out of your half and you're probably the favorite to win the final. So a lot to step up to for Tsitsipas. The other big name in the first half of the draw, Andrey Rublev. We talked about him like getting over the hump of winning his first Masters 1000 event earlier this year. now the bigger, more looming curse for him, 0-7 in Grand Slam quarterfinals. It was like maybe the most heart-wrenching moment for me, like of the tennis media last year, watching him cry when he realized he was going to lose in the quarterfinals at the US Open last year. And if he makes it to the quarterfinals this year, it's slated to be Djokovic right now. So that will be a tough 8th try likely for Rublev if both players make it there. One more note on Djokovic, just in the second round today, he was beyond fantastico. Like, his opponent came out and played what the announcers were calling some of the best tennis of his career. He had like 11 unforced errors in a game set that went to tiebreak. He was precise, he was brutal, he was like brilliant with these backhand slices that had a low trajectory, crazy amounts of spin and depth and power. After getting broken early, he just made it inevitable that he was going to break back. And Djokovic still held on, came out and like punched him in the nose in the tiebreak and was able to take it. And you saw that he just like stole the soul a little because he bageled him in the next set and was able to get through the third with a bit of difficulty, but never letting it get too close, going up a double break and giving himself some margin for error. So I talked at the start about Djokovic not having as much experience and there maybe being a bit of a rust factor this year at the French, but when you can play matches like that, which are sub 3 hours and against a very, very high level of tennis, and you get a rest day, that's kind of best of both worlds right now. So it's in that sense like a terrifying benefit of being the kind of player who brings out the best of your opponents, if you can use that as a whetstone for yourself. All right, the bottom half of the draw, sitting at the top in the number 5 seed is Holger Rune, another very young player with probably unreasonable expectations being placed on him this early in his career. But like, he's been to 3 Masters 1000 finals now, 2 of them happening on clay, some smaller level victories. He's really bolstered his stock in the month and a half of the clay season. And with the seeding, he has a lot of expectations on him. So far, he's through 2 rounds. I think he's slated to face some Americans later in the fourth and quarterfinals, like Tommy Paul and Taylor Fritz are sitting in that portion of the draw. It's just consistency. Like, we saw some issues against Rublev, letting the emotions get the better of him and not really game planning and shot selecting as well as you'd like. And you wonder how that's going to go over 5 sets for him. But he's been labeled a potential finalist out of that second half. The other guy, also of Scandinavian descent, with those kind of expectations, would be Casper Ruud. Really, his breakout came last year at Roland Garros, even though Rafa kind of ran him over in the finals. Just getting there, a massive step forward and a massive achievement for any player. And now he has to defend that. So that's the expectation, nothing less. No monsters in his half of the draw. It's been a bit of a topsy-turvy season for him so far. Less success than you'd like to see at the Clay Masters, so we'll see what he can do in the biggest tournament. Zverev also sitting in this half of the draw. He played some of the best tennis of his career against Alcaraz in the quarterfinals and against Rafa before he got injured in the semifinals. He's been slowly rehabbing back, still isn't having the success he had prior to that injury. So you wonder what being on these grounds where it originally happened will mean for him and his level of play. Last note, Daniel Medvedev, number 2 seed in the tournament, and for my money, the best player in the world so far in 2023, loses his first round matchup, second round match. No, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it was the first round against Sebosh, the Brazilian. A really inspired effort from his opponent. Just that phenomena of players really stepping up against the best players in the world. other than the double faults, which were like really bad and like 15 over 5 sets or something, I thought Medvedev played fine. His opponent just played better. So we have to put off the Clay Videv narrative for another year. But now this guy has stolen the number 2 seed draw and gets a fairly easy time of it. He hasn't played yet. He plays again tomorrow, so definitely a small thing to keep your eye on and see if it was a one trick pony or there's more to this, or that's the beginning of a Cinderella-esque run. And yeah, so not a ton of tennis match analysis, but those are the things I have in mind looking at certain names in this draw that starts out with 256 players. So hopefully it gives your eyes something to focus on.